Hello, everyone. Kevin Williams back on the Shore Sports Network with another one of our very many Kevin's Corner interviews. Our thanks to Jersey Mike's, who's been sponsoring all the video stuff we've been done during these times. We are going to get some sports coming soon locally with the Last Dance baseball tournament, but I think most of us that are in the business of sports are spending more time speculating about the future. And I've got a gentleman that we're going to chat with today who I think could provide some valuable information, not just for schools, but for parents who have a zillion questions about safety and all of that, because July 13th is the day in New Jersey that high school sports can resume with what's called summer workouts. And youth sports has already returned in some fashion. I know, talking to a friend of mine, Little League Baseball, they have games next week. So things like that. Joe Schulman is the founder and CEO of Gold Bond Building Services and Rest Assured UV Sanitary Systems. I've known Joe for many, many years. Our common link has been the Lakewood Blue Claws. If you've ever listened to a Blue Claws game on the radio, you've heard a Gold Bond commercial. Joe has been affiliated with them and his cleaning services basically since the get-go. And I thought this would be a good conversation to have as we sort of run the gamut of sports. So, Joe, with that, thanks for being willing to do this and hopefully provide some valuable information.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. It's my pleasure.
So here we go. Outdoor sports. Let's start. And we were going to assume, based on everything we've heard, that being outdoors is clearly safer than indoors for obvious reasons. But in the world you live in, and I've looked at the NJSIAA guidelines for the safe return to sports, and obviously cleaning is mentioned everywhere, and sanitation and sanitizing and all that. So in your world, what are some of the things that you might be able to do that would help someone?
Well, there is a whole world of high-tech equipment that's available that utilizes ultraviolet germicidal irradiation, which is becoming more and more popular, especially in hospitals and now in schools, as well as a process known as photocatalytic oxidation, which was a development of the for space travel by NASA. It was a technology developed by NASA back in the 1990s to be able to send men on long duration missions such as to the moon and back to Mars. My company has been working with several manufacturers of UV for the last almost 24 years. And of course, I've been in the cleaning business for 38 years. As you mentioned, the Lakewood Blue Claws, we were the one and only cleaning service for the Blue Claws from the day they opened. And we were with them all the way through the 2018 season. We also have been taking care of the Trenton Thunder for the last 10 years. And we had a contract with the Staten Island Yankees as well for a few years until we decided that it was too difficult to staff that job. Yeah. But these solutions that I'm discussing with you today are such that they're so effective that they can help ensure a safe indoor environment and a sustainable safe indoor environment, not only now in the post-COVID-19 world and as we get back to normal or try to, but even more importantly down the road when the next viral threat or bacterial threat comes along, which it's bound to do. As a matter of fact, I recently heard, as of yesterday, I heard a report that in China there is another possibility of a virus having crossed over from pigs to humans, and they don't really know what it's capable of yet. So here we go again.
Yeah.
And if we're going to prevent a shutdown after we restart the sports and athletics world, if we're going to prevent that, and if we're going to enable sports to continue uninterrupted, we're going to have solutions for doing a better job cleaning. A few weeks ago, I was listening to Mike Francesa on his Sunday show, and he talked about his opinion of the only way that the world could get back to sports as normal was to either have a vaccine or to come up with a medicinal protocol that if you caught the disease, you could be cured. He did not discuss the obvious elephant in the room, which was how are we going to protect the indoor environment? And that is, how are we going to make sure that surfaces and air are clean enough so that people won't be passing the virus among themselves? And in fact, we can do that with this equipment and prevent the virus from damaging our ability to play sports and enjoy sports, and be confident in an indoor environment once again.
before I follow up with the indoor, let me just go outdoor again, because among the
Yes.
things that people have to be aware of and athletes have to be aware of, let's start with like bench areas, like benches have to be sanitized. If
Yes.
we do, Joe, if we do have sports, high school sports in which people can go to the game, I think of the bleachers and the stands. So give me an idea of what can be done to make that safer.
Well, there are systems, there are ultraviolet systems that are actually designed for use in stadiums. They feature a tower and wings, which extend over the seats above and below. So you could actually move these things through the seats very quickly. And in just a couple of hours, you could treat an entire stadium with ultraviolet radiation that would kill any germs on the surface. Now, being outdoors, there's a very good possibility those germs are going to reappear. They're going to be contaminated again. But by judicious use of this type of technology, not only in the stadiums and arenas themselves, but also in the locker rooms and in the benches and the dugouts, we can do a much better job and lower the risk significantly of an athlete or a coach or a fan contracting that viral disease.
Yeah, and I would say, you mentioned something that didn't even dawn on me, but among the questions and maybe the bigger issues to evolve with high school sports is or are locker rooms. Nobody seems to know, how can we do this? How can we? I mean, let's be honest, locker rooms are, for the most part, fairly filthy on a regular basis, and that was before we had a virus to deal with.
Yes, that's true. And there are a number of different solutions out there. Ultraviolet is one of them, and it's certainly part of an overall picture. Um, there are what's another technology that's become very popular is fogging. There's a lot of you'll see Facebook ads all over the place for companies that perform fogging, but there's a downside to fogging, especially when you're indoors, and that is as you continue to use a fogging machine, you're applying a chemical to every surface and every object in that environment. And that chemical builds up over time, unless it's wiped down and wiped away. Yeah, it might kill the germs, but you're basically creating flypaper out of your indoor spaces. And then the added labor that it's going to take to wash down the walls and the lockers inside and out and everything else that's been coated in a disinfectant chemical in order to prevent people from coming in contact with that chemical is extra labor intensive. So that's one of the beauty parts of using ultraviolet. You're using pure light to disinfect. You're not adding anything to the air. You're not adding anything to the environment, and you're not creating more work to clean up after the disinfection process. So over time, and not doesn't take very long, this equipment will pay for itself in a situation like that. It's to me, it's a no-brainer, but I do have a bias when it comes to this type of technology, obviously.
Yeah. What is PCO?
PCO is nomenclature for photocatalytic oxide.
Okay.
Back in the 90s, when they decided they were going to go back to space and they needed to feed the astronauts on the moon and further along the line on Mars someday. They got together with the University of Wisconsin and they developed a process that oxidizes any organic material that goes into the chamber, that's drawn into the chamber. And what I mean by oxidation is, think about your catalytic converter in your car. Have you ever sat behind a car and noticed the water dripping out of a tailpipe? Mm-hmm. That's the catalytic converter, converting carbon monoxide to water vapor. And that's the same process here, only we use a photocatalyst. We use a nano coating technology to coat the inside of these chambers, of a PCO chamber. And then we bathe that chamber in UVC light, germicidal UV light. And that energy activates the catalyst to produce hydroxyl radicals, which are attached and bound to the surface inside. And as organic material flows around and through them, it is instantly oxidized into water vapor and very minute trace amounts of CO2. So what comes out the other side of one of these machines is nothing but sterile air with a little bit of water vapor in it. And over time, when you put one of these machines inside a room or a space, and they're scalable to any size room or space you may need them in, you can lower the level of organic matter in the air by about 75 to 80% and keep it there. And that means you've got a 75 or 80% less chance of contracting a disease that may be floating around in the air. When you put a system like this together with ultraviolet technology, which attacks the germs on the surfaces primarily. You've got a complementary system that has the capability of keeping the air and the surfaces at a constant hygienic level, so it's not a threat. And it doesn't matter what type of organism you're talking about, whether it's a common cold or common flu or COVID-19 or the next viral threat that comes along. PCO can eliminate it, and so can ultraviolet germicidal irradiation. So for locker rooms, for dugouts, even for the seating areas in stadiums, there are practical applications of both these technologies that can help big time when it comes to returning to sports and making it sustainable.
Would that be the same, for example, for a basketball arena
Yes.
on a high school level? You know, a gym. We call them gyms,
Yes.
right?
Yes. We have an ultraviolet tower that we can put inside a 3,500 square foot room and have it completely sterilized, virtually sterilized in 15 minutes. We can take that same tower, we can put it in a classroom, a typical 600 square foot classroom, and we can sterilize it in 3 minutes, 2.5 to 3 minutes. And so they will save a lot of time and a lot of effort. As I mentioned earlier, there really are labor saving devices as well as high-tech sanitation devices. And yes, they can be used in those applications.
I'm just wondering, because this is all new, man. You're speaking foreign language in some cases, which is why you're breaking it down and not me. Do schools or colleges, do they buy this, or do you as a service come out and do this for them on a whatever basis it might be?
It can be either way. Most of the schools that we've heard from so far are looking to purchase these machines and have their janitorial staff operate them. And what we are willing to do is, if they do purchase anything from us, that we will train their personnel on those machines and how to safely use them and effectively use them, and how to verify that they've done the job and that they've delivered the lethal dose that they need to kill whatever microorganism they're going after.
Well, it's a far cry from a little spray bottle in a dirty cloth, huh?
Yes, it is. And it's funny that you mentioned cloth, because there's something very simple that people in their own homes and in schools can do to dramatically increase the efficiency of their cleaning. And that is, if they're cleaning right now with cotton cloths or paper towels or anything that's not microfiber, switch to microfiber. Microfiber technology has been around since the late 90s. I first learned about it when I was introducing my first ultraviolet product to the world at a trade show in Chicago for the International Sanitary Supply Association. And my booth happened to be right next to a couple of guys who were selling microfiber. I'd never seen it or heard of it before, but they convinced me that because of the structure of the microfibers having millions of tiny microscopic fibers, very little soap or disinfectant was needed to produce the same results as heavy-duty disinfectants would with cotton cloths, because of the scrubbing action of the microfiber and the superior absorbency and release of soils at the same time. So I became a convert. I began using microfibers with Gold Bonds cleaning. And as you know, most of what we do is medical office cleaning.
Yep.
And that's become very sensitive in this environment. And microfiber works very well and will actually pay for itself over time as well. I don't sell microfiber.
Yeah, I got you.
I buy them at Sam's Club like every other person off the road. But I will say that's the best place to buy them, if I can give Sam's Club a plug.
Yeah. So let's be honest. You've been around. I mean, you're ingrained in this area, so you know most of our school districts, especially the large ones, are in real budget crunches. I mean, there's just not a lot of money. How do they do some of these things in a cost-effective manner? I mean, it's got to be a challenge. I mean, we're sitting here, we're hoping to go back to school right around Labor Day, so we're only 2 months away. How can they incorporate some of these things in their facilities?
Well, first of all, it's very hard to get an ultraviolet device right now, because as the world has learned what UV can do for them, they've been selling out everywhere they're being manufactured. So right now there's about a 10-week waiting list for our UV towers. However, that being said, what I've been advising school districts to do is, number one, talk to their Jan-San supplier. I'm working with a very long time Jan-San supplier here on the Jersey Shore. Been in business for 75 years and does business with just about every school district in the state of New Jersey. So I'm sure anybody from the facilities operations in a school that may be watching us now or listening later is going to know who I'm talking about. Um, that's one way to do it. Can you refresh me on the question again, Kevin? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought
Well,
momentarily.
just how schools can do some of these things, whether
Yes,
it be for a
yes,
classroom or really an athletic facility in a cost-effective manner. I mean, it's a tough time.
yes. The most cost-effective way is to buy the UV equipment that's going to do the job in the fastest possible time, so that the people operating it don't have to wait for it to do its job. What I've been suggesting to school districts that have reached out to me is that they gradually they purchase perhaps a UV tower, and because they're portable, they can set them up to do classrooms, they can set them up to clean the gymnasium, they can move them into the locker room, and it will really enhance the results of the cleaning as well as be an affordable solution. Most organizations like school districts have operational budgets and capital budgets. We just did a big deal for a major Northeast university where we set up their entire athletic center up in North Jersey with ultraviolet and PCO solutions to keep the athletes, the staff, and the medical staff, and of course anybody coming into the building safe. And we spec'd this project for each individual space according to the size of the space and what was going to be going on in that space. So we can do that for any school, we can do that for any facility, and we can start with just a small application of whatever they can afford to spend, and then perhaps next year they can put in their capital budget a larger expenditure, and they can complete the outfitting of the school to make it safe for whatever might come along next. So that's what I would suggest. They don't have to break the bank now, but they at least should learn about it and get started on whatever level they can afford to.
And you feel confident, though, with the technology that exists today, and obviously it's even going to grow, that there are certainly ways for schools and other facilities to protect athletes, individuals, in a much better manner than what has been done up to this point. No question.
Absolutely, Kevin. No question about it. You know, just speaking about ultraviolet, there are products designed for the individual that I've personally designed, a UV wand, a UV cell phone sanitizer. I am trying to put one of those in every locker of every professional athlete in the country, so that they can keep their cell phones and their personal items clean. As you know, cell phones, just to use those as an example, probably the dirtiest thing you have
Yeah.
because you're constantly handling it. You take it with you everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And so you can imagine that the germ load that is on a typical cell phone. We have a device that can clean any cell phone in 30 seconds, or any other small object that you may want to drop in it in just 30 seconds. So as something small and insignificant as a cell phone sanitizer can play a huge role in keeping cell phones or other objects from becoming a vector for illness throughout other areas of any given building. Showing somebody a picture you just took on your cell phone can pass a germ from you to them. So it's something that's important. And so I guess my point is that when it comes to this type of technology, it's available to help the individual, it's available to help the facility, it's available, and by strategizing and figuring out how you want to deploy these technologies, you can create a protective envelope inside your building and outside in your facilities as well.
Cleanliness and athletics on the high school level did not necessarily go hand in hand, but obviously the world has changed. Joe, if someone wants to get in touch with you, whether it be a school, a parent, or anything, best way to reach you?
Best way to reach me is to give us a call. My main office number for Gold Bond is 732-833-7700. If you want to reach out for me directly, my direct email is uvsanman, SANMAN, as you might imagine, at gmail.com. And I'll be happy to advise and respond and help people any way I can. I'm a product of the Jersey Shore. I used to be a teacher here in Lakewood, a coach in Lakewood, an athlete of sorts, and I can even swing a golf club at my advanced age still. So I have a direct personal interest in trying to keep the kids on the Jersey Shore and all over the state as healthy as we can. And this is my mission coming out of retirement to do this. And I'm hoping people are willing to at least give me a listen.
And your website, if somebody wants to check out the website.
Yes, the website is www.gb, as in gold bond, gbcleans.com.
Simple.
Simple, like me.
Appreciate your time. In some ways, I wish this was a conversation we didn't have to have, but I think we all know going forward, it's one that is incredibly important. And, you know, there's so many questions about the return to school as in part of that, the return to athletics. And I think you'd agree with me, health and safety has never been a priority like it is in the summer of 2020.
I would absolutely agree with you. And, you know, it's never been a concern before that we could clean the things that we couldn't see, like germs. But today, it's an absolute necessity. You have to make sure that there are no germs, even though you can't see them. And these are ways that high-tech ways that we can do that.
Joe
Thank
Shulman,
you, Kevin, for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for your time and expertise, and enjoy that retirement whenever it comes.
I shall. I'll be working on it. Thank you once again, Kevin. Be well.